I'm Amber Tresca, and this is About IBD. I'm a medical writer and patient educator who lives with a J-pouch due to ulcerative colitis. It's my mission to educate people living with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis about their disease and to bring awareness to the patient journey. Welcome to episode 171. Are you struggling to manage your career and your health? Having a full-time job while living with an IBD is not easy. I worked in an office for many years before my health and the needs of my family prompted me to take the leap into working freelance. I'm thrilled to welcome Jen Hubley Luckwaldt. Along with her partner, Allison Doyle, Jen created The Job Hopper, which is a Substack community offering job searching tips and career advice. Jen shares her journey from traditional employment to freelancing with an emphasis on how the shift has allowed her to better balance work, health, and family. We explore the flexibility a freelance career can offer, why setting boundaries with clients is so important, and how to identify the skills you already have that can help you start your business. Jen also provides valuable insights on building a supportive community and networking, especially for those navigating the challenges of a chronic illness. Jen, welcome to About IBD.
Amber, thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad to know you for so many reasons. But when I started developing episodes around things that are like getting outside the gut a little bit, I don't know, I still haven't come up with a name. Maybe we can workshop that a little bit. But about how to live a better life with people with chronic illness. And then immediately you came to mind because you are perfect for this. So I would love for everyone else, though, to get to know you a little bit better. So would you get started with an introduction and let us know a little bit more about yourself?
Happy to. My name is Jen Hubley Luckwaldt. I'm a freelance writer and editor and have been for over 14 years. And I have a job search and career advice newsletter on Substack called The Job Hopper, which I run with Allison Doyle. She's another one of our former About.com folks. Mm-hmm. She's my co-founder and co-editor.
I do love to see people from the way back days. Do you remember what year you started with About.com?
2005, 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. And then I don't remember what they were called at the time, but the silos at the time. What silo were you in?
They were channels and I did parenting, which was funny because I wouldn't have a kid for another 13 years. And style and money and, oh my goodness, I think I did everything at least once. Oh, hobbies. Okay. But I worked all the time and I didn't have time for hobbies. I mean, this is the olden days of the internet. So really anything went.
It's funny because I couldn't really place you. I was thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, I feel like I've known her forever, but then I couldn't really remember exactly. And that explains a lot because you were all over the network. And so...
And here's a careers tip for anyone. The way you describe that to people is you say that you're a generalist, and it sounds better than I was an expert at nothing, and I did a lot of different stuff.
That's so funny.
You're a generalist. Yes. Remember.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Already dropping the knowledge. I was always in health, so never veered from that. So we didn't work in the same channel at all, but we were under the same umbrella network. And so that's how we knew of one another. But yeah, going back, I mean, I go back to 2000. So going back all these years, it's like the memories of those days are fuzzy for a lot of different reasons. And none of them are drug related. So unfortunately,
it's too bad, but it's true.
It's too bad, but it's true. All right. So great segue though into you telling us more about your journey, and our focus here today is freelancing and how that is a good opportunity. Well, I think, and you'll tell me, but that it's a good way for people with chronic illness or rare disease to still be in the workforce. So can you tell us how you got started as a freelancer?
Sure. You know, if I could have started off as a freelancer, I absolutely would have. I just had to wait for the internet to catch up to me.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted to work at home, to work for myself, to manage my own time, to have a lot more choice about the projects I worked on. Because, you know, even if you love your job, if you work for someone else, they get to tell you what the deadlines are, where the company's going, which is not always where you want it to be going in the long term. So I wanted that independence, and I didn't really get it till 2011. And the thing that changed was that I got laid off. So I think I was the only person in the layoff meeting who was excited. And I really liked my job. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm out of here. I was just like, oh, okay. I'd been thinking about it, but I couldn't bring myself to make that leap because I liked my job. And then when they were like, you don't have this job anymore, I was like, problem solved. Yeah, I started freelancing full-time in 2011, used my severance to buy me a couple months to transition and make all my mistakes without totally ruining myself financially, which is always nice. And I never looked back. It's been a learning experience, certainly, but it's definitely the best professional thing I ever did. Short of going to work for About, because that's where I met a lot of my friends and colleagues.
Yeah. And I think also having that network, my journey was that I was doing the work for About.com, which is Very Well Health now. And that was kind of a side gig because, high type A personality, I guess. I don't know if we like use that phrase anymore, but I still do.
I do all the time.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's okay. So there's two of us at least. I only say in regards to myself, so I don't apply it to anyone else. I don't want to be insulting. But yeah,
even though it's a compliment.
I mean, I don't know, because it can also go sometimes with like people thinking that maybe you are uptight or inflexible. I'm not saying I'm not those things, but
I was going to say, are we not those things? I feel like maybe I am those things, but yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but for myself, being the type A, like I was doing About.com in addition to my full-time job. I was, working at a regular 9 to 5, and I didn't get laid off. I left after I had a baby because it was too much, and not knowing how it would all work out. But what happened is that as people left the job that I was at and went to like other places, they then would reach out to me to hire me. So like it would be great to start out as a freelancer, but I actually don't really know what that path would look like because I was in a space where I had made connections, and then it was those connections that paid dividends. And then of course, all of the people that I met through About.com, which is just a wide swath, not all in health at all, just a wide swath of people, which of course is, how I know you and why I immediately tapped you to come on my show.
I mean, that's one of the best things. We really did luck out because it was, such a diverse site in terms of topics. So now, if I need a health person, I've got, 100 health people I can contact. If I need a parenting expert, I know all those folks. It's really just been very helpful. From a networking perspective.
So interesting how it's worked out like that. And so what types of freelance work do you think that people who live with chronic illness, who live with rare disease, what might be flexible? What might be accommodating when you're living with a health condition?
So there are all different kinds of jobs that you can adapt to freelance work. Obviously, like you, I come from the writing and editing journalism side of things, but designers, project managers, anyone who works online from their office currently can certainly do it. But there are also, for people who maybe are making a bigger transition, you could look at things like being a virtual assistant or doing customer service. Those jobs still exist. I would just say it's always easier if you can transition more directly from what you're doing right now, especially when you start out, because your freelance career will grow and develop with the market. The big thing I wanted to say, as somebody who deals with chronic illness myself, because I collect autoimmune disorders as if they were Pokemon, is that whatever area you focus in, you really want to look for something that is flexible. And that means, for me at least, I have found it's better if I don't have a daily deadline every single day. It's better if I'm working on a contract basis for companies that will allow me to work either by the project or do hourly, but say like, this is due every Friday, or here are deadlines throughout the month, because then I can kind of get ahead a little bit And, some days you wake up and you just don't have the spoons and it's not a work day.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, as you're figuring out what you want to do as a freelancer, really keep in mind what your needs are and be honest with yourself and know that that's okay. It's all right to need time off to take care of yourself. Hopefully people know that, but just in case, I think it's important to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. And something else that if you're really good at your freelancing, you may be approached to do more.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to push back. It's really okay. It's a negotiation. One of the great things about being a freelancer is you do not have a boss. These are clients. You can tell them what your availability is, and that is just fine.
Yeah. I'm going to have to bleep myself, but I always after I said to you at the beginning of our conversation that I try to keep the swears off of this podcast because you and I both do love the swears, but I always say that my boss is a real and my boss is me. So
I say something similar. Yeah.
Coming up, how to find out what your strengths are. Okay, so how does somebody figure out, what are my strengths? What are my marketable skills that I could take out into the workplace as a freelancer?
The first thing I would recommend that people do is talk to their friends and their favorite coworkers and ask them, what are my strengths? Because, again, I find, and this may be because I'm a type A person, but I find we are all much harder on ourselves than the people who love, like, and respect us are.
Yes.
So they're more likely to say, you're amazing at sticking to a deadline. You are a creative thinker. And you'd think, well, I don't think I'm anything special in this regard. But you're not looking at it maybe the way that your coworkers and friends would. The other thing I would say is take a look at your current or your former jobs at the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook. I know that is a long tail for this thing, but yeah, take a look at that because you'll see the skills that are required for it, even soft skills like, people skills and conflict resolution, creativity, critical thinking, things that you might take for granted. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to give the URL for that since
Absolutely.
It's hard to Google.
Yeah.
So it's www.bls.gov/OOH. And include the www because this is a government site and it will not work. I was testing it out before the podcast and I was like, wow, I'm glad I did that. Otherwise, I would have sent people to a dead link that would be no help.
Oh, boy. And heaven forbid that it redirect or something.
I know. What if it did? Can you imagine? Could go anywhere.
Be so much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Be a lot more entertaining, but would it be useful? Yeah.
That's so interesting. Ask people around you. Again, makes so much sense. I never would have thought of that. Also, I'm a little afraid.
That's okay, too. You don't have to tell anyone about that.
Yeah.
You can just file that away and be like, don't ask that person for a recommendation.
This is true. But what about that, though? What about asking more formally, for instance, a LinkedIn recommendation? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
The big thing to do, I usually offer people recommendations before I ask for them. Or sometimes if you're really after a job and time is of the essence and you're like, man, I don't have time to write 15 recommendations and hope that people will be willing to reciprocate.
Yeah.
It's totally okay to reach out and say, hey, do you think that you could speak to this or that quality or experience? If you do that, be as specific as possible. Look at the job listing and see what are they looking for and say, do you think you can tell this person that I have, managed a team of writers and people usually are pretty honest about whether they'll feel comfortable or you just won't hear back and then there's your answer. But usually I found that people are actually very, very willing to help.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Jen, we have to talk about boundaries here. It's been a little bit of a personal struggle for me. So
Same.
Maybe I'm just asking for you to give me advice on this. To your point about asking someone for a LinkedIn recommendation, I have been asked to give them. For the first time, I had someone ask me for a recommendation. And this person could totally be listening, and I adore you and I love you, but I'm going to relate this experience. Could you write me a recommendation? I wrote the recommendation and then I was given edits, and it never even occurred to me to approach it in that way. And I was totally fine in that process, but it just, because I am such a binary thinker at times, that I was just like not thinking of it that way. But it totally made sense. And obviously that's somebody that knew what they needed in order to get their LinkedIn profile to where they wanted it to be. Okay.
That never occurred to me, I'll be honest with you.
Really?
That you could even ask for edits. So I wish you could see, can I tell you, I wish that your audience could see my face right now because my eyes popped open. But now that we're talking about it, sorry, I'm cutting off your question. Sorry, I just got amazed by this. Now,
okay, because I thought it was commonplace. I mean, I was like, okay,
I haven't heard of it.
Okay.
But that just means that I haven't run into it yet. You never know. It's a big, wide world out there.
Okay.
I think that's probably okay as long as this person, I'm assuming, was kind and respectful in their approach.
Yes.
That's the main thing with all of this, really.
Yeah. And there's reciprocity there as well and all of that. So it's like in collaboration. And as a writer, a lot, at least the writing that I do, there is a lot of collaboration. I'm used to getting edits and notes. I have no problem with it anymore. I don't have a lot of ownership except for what I write for my blog. That's my own. Yeah. Don't ever give me edits. I don't want to hear it.
Important to say, because that has happened to me. People will pop out of nowhere and be like, I think you should cover this. And it's like, get your own blog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I love, what's the word I'm looking for? Content manager.
Analysis? Oh, yeah. Content manager.
Yeah, like content manager. Yeah. I have a whole internet full of content managers. And sometimes I really enjoy getting the suggestions because it will be something that I never would have thought of, especially if I can be given an expert to go along with it.
As long as it's a suggestion and not a reply guy. As long as it's not somebody being like, let me explain your disease to you and also the thing that you've been doing for 25 years.
But you know what? I mean, this does feed into my question around boundaries, though, because I want to know about setting boundaries in regards to clients and prioritizing your health, but also something that I see in you that I find so admirable is that I have seen people give you notes or edits on something you've written. And but you are always so good about replying, not only in a constructive and kind way, but also you usually come back with some humor, which
that's my defense mechanism. You got me.
It's, I mean, I recognize it because I try to do the same, except when I get really mad, and I don't usually do it on my own behalf. I will 100% do it on someone else's behalf. But I have found that so admirable in you. So how can people think about setting boundaries in this way?
Well, the first thing I would say is I have learned the hard way that if it's somebody commenting on something you've done, not a client end, and you're really mad, never respond when you're really mad. Agreed. Even if you think you're reining it in, this is where I'm kind of a hippie. I think your intention comes through. I feel like the vibe comes through in what you write, and you're not in control of it. And one of the advantages of working at home for yourself is you control what people see of you. You never have to worry about losing, the cheese falling off your cracker in front of other people. So take advantage of that and walk away until you're feeling better. But with clients, first of all, obviously build in that time wherever you can, set the boundaries right up front, give yourself the time to do it, and be honest with yourself about what you can do. Not in a perfect world, but in this one.
Yeah.
Then I would say also there's a mindset issue, which is I try to remind myself that it's not necessarily a conflict, it's a collaboration. we have the same goal, which is to, get this piece of content out into the world or whatever we're working on. And people have their own stuff going on, so they're not always thinking of me. For example, I don't work Wednesdays. Wednesday is my day off in the middle of the week. I find it really helps me not to be flat out for a whole, 5-day work week. And all my regular long-term clients know that, but I still get a ton of requests to do stuff on Wednesdays. It's not because they are trying to push me, and it's not that they don't care. It's that they have their own priorities. And so I just sort of gently say, oh, I'm not available Wednesday. Hopefully they tell me with time and I can offer them something very soon. Or, sometimes you have to go back and say, here are the things that I've got on my prio list for you. What's the most important? What do you need first? But the mindset, I think, is the most important thing. Like, most people really want to work with you, not against you. Assume the best, and worst case scenario, you'll find out maybe that's someone that you don't want to work with forever. And then you replace them eventually with a client who's more flexible.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Like, I'm really taking it in for myself as well, and then also the idea that there's always another client. Let me put it that way.
There is. And it is another thing. Again, I feel like I'm, getting ready to sell people my MLM or something, but it comes from an abundance mindset. The idea that there are other clients, there's more work. That's important to remember, because the other thing you'll run into as a freelancer is sometimes you are like shooing clients away to protect your time and your health.
Yes.
And other times it's like, they've totally disappeared. Where is everybody? There's nothing.
Yes.
It's coming back. Especially if you remain flexible and willing to learn new things and adapt, the work will be there. It's just an up and a down cycle. That's the way it goes.
100%. Agree with that. 100%. And sometimes when I'm like, well, that client's not going to come back at me again. I've actually never had that happen.
No.
From asserting a boundary. Yeah.
No, never from a boundary. Usually from the marketplace shifted. That's usually why you lose people, in my experience.
After the break, how to think about and incorporate feedback. All right, so we talked a little bit about LinkedIn and sort of, engaging people, and you said ask friends and coworkers, hopefully ones that are kind.
Yes.
I mean, you want a certain little, you may want a little salt in there too, just so that you get a dose of reality and it's not all completely positive. But what more role might community play? And I'm thinking specifically of like networks or mentors as you start a freelance career.
I think community is everything. I get most of my gigs through friends and colleagues, and especially referrals. At this point, because I've been doing this for a while, I have a lot of friends where if I can't take on a job or it's not quite right for me, I'll refer it to them. They'll do the same for me.
Yep.
And I think people will be amazed at how quickly that happens. But the big thing is, and we say this a lot on the Job Hopper, kindness really is the best approach to building your freelance career. If you come at it from a perspective of how can I help other people, they will remember that. I have found that 100% of the time. And I'd say too, in terms of social media, you will probably already have networks that you like and you're active on. New ones roll out all the time. Sometimes you have to make a switch, like I'm not on X/Twitter anymore for political and other reasons. But it's okay to like the networks you're on and to maximize that. You don't need to jump on every new trend. Usually what I do is I try it just so I know how it works. And then I know pretty quickly if it's for me or not. Like, I love Blue Sky. I think Blue Sky is great.
I'm still figuring out Blue Sky. I haven't quite got there yet. My husband is now very quickly got to be like a Blue Sky expert.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool because it's brand new. So he's like on the ground floor. I love that.
Seriously. So he's developed a network in there for his gaming writing, which, he does as a side hustle. And he's coming at me with, you can do this and you can do that. And here's what I did there and that. And I'm like what?
I bet you 85% of this would be news to me. because I'm just not that person. But you know what? Allison would know it all already. She absolutely would. She's so good at social media.
Yes. Allison, who ran, what was it called in the About.com days?
Job search.
Job search. Okay, great. I was going to say careers, so job search. Yeah. Fantastic. And your partner at the Job Hopper.
And like the nicest, kindest person.
Completely.
Definitely exemplifies this idea of like you help people in order to get help. Well, not in order to, but help people and they will help you.
Right. Which I have also found to be true. And I'm asked fairly often about, do you know anybody who, and I didn't set out to be like a connector, but it's kind of worked out that way.
Let me ask you too, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, I'm 100% an introvert. My husband would argue, but
So I am an introvert who absolutely loves people. So no one believes me.
Same. Yeah.
No one believes me
same.
ever. Yeah.
No, I love people. I love a one-on-one conversation. But if you ask me to walk into a room of a bunch of people that I don't know, that will give me anxiety for days.
I'm sweating as we're talking about this. Yeah. It's not just a hot flash, although it's also a hot flash.
It could be a hot flash. Yeah. Sometimes they come together. But writers are mostly introverts. That's been my experience. But podcasters sometimes are introverts, and it's kind of a weird thing to say, okay, but then your job is kind of like talking to people. And it's like, yeah, I love people. I'm not an introvert that doesn't like people. And for instance, some of the feedback that I've gotten in my life, and, Jen, this is now a therapy session for me.
I love it. I'm so excited.
So some of the feedback that I've gotten in my working career was that I don't speak up enough in meetings and so forth.
Can I say something about that? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it was just going to say that it was delivered to me by somebody that I trust. And it was because we had a trusting relationship that I took it to heart, and we were able to have that conversation. And then I was able to change my behavior. So when it was delivered in that way, it was okay. And we worked through it.
The first thing is you absolutely need friends like that, because if people won't give you advice when you need it, then you're not going to continue to grow. But also I love that you were able to get that feedback in the spirit it was given. And then the next thing I want to say is that women get that feedback all the time. And I think it's partly because we don't speak up as much, because we don't like to interrupt unless we're adding on.
Yes.
We don't want to interrupt because we have a thing to say and we think it's more important. We're just not socialized to be that way. But the other thing is, I wonder if sometimes people think we're not speaking up because they're not listening to us. I think all of that is at play.
I was younger then, so I wasn't cognizant of all of these aspects of that feedback. And thinking back on it now, because it is a person that I respect and trust, and who respected and trusted me, and who said nice things about me when I wasn't in the room.
Yes,
we
love
knew that. So
we stand a supportive king.
Yeah. But also, there have been other times when I have been accused of taking over a meeting. So I do wonder about people's perception of it versus what it actually is because of my gender or other. And now that I'm a podcast host, I absolutely talk a lot more in every single space in my life.
I love that journey for you, and I want to see it continue. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, if you would have told me that, I would go and give talks at medical meetings and stuff. No, the answer to that would be no, but that's part of my work life now.
Isn't that crazy? Do you ever kind of want to get in a time machine and go back and tell yourself 20 years ago, hey, this is what you're going to do for a living?
It is really wild because it's I didn't set out to be a writer. I was told, again, here's feedback that I didn't listen to, Jen. I was told in my college career that I should probably get out of science and get into English. And I was like, yeah, no, I want to do the science. And then it turned out that, I'm a medical writer. So this, my background in science informs my writing.
I wonder what possibly could have been going on with that advice. What are the factors? What could the factors possibly be?
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think in freelancing in general, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but I wonder if you could get a little more specific for me, because I think my own mindset, I kind of come from that scarcity mindset in almost everything. And I
Sure.
have to remind myself not to do that. But you talked a little bit about that abundance mindset. And I think that you have it. Like, do you have any thoughts about how somebody can sort of make that shift?
I had to work really hard at it because I definitely, like, by nature, sort of assume disaster. Like, that is, I'm like, my mother claims that this is genetic and that it's from the Irish side of our family. Like, oh, cheers, it's terrible and it's only getting
I would
worse.
not disagree.
Yeah. With a big smile on their face as they say
Yes.
this. But yeah.
Yes.
I do think that there is enough. There is enough in every area of our lives, but specifically in freelance, there is a ton of work out there, even independent of what the economy in general is doing. Like, I got started as a freelancer really during the recession or at the tail end when things were about as bad as they were going to be.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of work, in part because companies were being very careful to determine whether they needed to hire someone full-time or whether this was a project that they could outsource to someone like me. The other thing is, I will tell you that keeping that mindset that there is enough work and that there will always be more work will help you avoid getting trapped in low-paying gigs or situations where people just aren't very nice. Like, I have a policy, I only work with nice people.
Yeah.
If I find out that someone, and that doesn't mean like, I want the criticism, obviously. I want constructive criticism. I want to do the best I can do. Sometimes projects don't work and we need to do them over, and I'm used to that. I'm happy to do it. It just means I don't work with people who are bullies in any way. I don't work with people who don't respect my time or other people's time. And I would just say it's something that you have to practice. So another thing is, don't feel bad if it's not, second nature to you to assume that things are okay. But there's a lot of work out there, and people need listeners. People need your unique voice. They need your skills. I would say, especially if you are chronically ill, you have a skill set that other people don't have in terms of patience and ingenuity that are really valuable to employers. You know how to get stuff done with no resources when it seems like it's impossible, just by virtue of dealing with day-to-day life. And that's a soft skill that honestly no one teaches and can't be learned other than through experience.
100%. Wow. That was a great soundbite. Thank you for that.
Anything I can do, I'm here to help.
All right. So let's talk a little more specific. You gave one resource already. Is there anything else that you like? Some tools or platforms that you recommend for people as they're starting out?
Yes, all kinds of stuff. So if you're tracking your time, I like Toggle. I love Trello. I love Google Calendar and Google Docs. There's also an app called Tomato Timer that actually is owned by the company TopTool now, but you can just search for Tomato Timer. And it uses the Pomodoro method, which, if you're familiar with it, you can set it up so that you work for, I haven't used it for a while because now I'm on different types of projects, but I think it's like you work for 20 minutes and then you have 5 minutes off, and then every 3 Pomodoros, which is the cycle, you get like 10 minutes.
Oh.
And I find it really useful for times when my motivation is low and I'm just feeling very distractible. I have a lot of friends with ADHD who say it's like the way that they get things done.
Wow.
But the big thing I would say is, especially when you're just starting out, there are so many free tools for everything that you want to do. Do not pay for anything. It is... Perhaps other people don't suffer from this problem, but this is a problem that I have. I tend to think, like a good little capitalist, that if I throw money at this problem, I can get rid of it.
Absolutely.
This app will solve all my productivity woes, and like there's a free version that will help you do that. So don't waste your money.
Agree with that 100%. Although I use Trello to produce this podcast. And I do pay for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you will find
There's
that
free. I mean, it's fine to use the free, but I needed more. So,
and you totally can upgrade once you get to the point where
yes.
by the time you need the paid version of things like Trello, you are, fingers crossed for you, earning enough money that's okay. It's fine to invest in things. Just don't let anybody fool you into thinking you have to spend money you don't have yet. That's the main thing.
Agree. And use that free trial. I've done that. Although if they ask for a credit card before a free trial, that's out. I'm not doing that.
I've done that a couple times and I have, first of all, yeah, your advice is the best advice. Just don't. But if you do, put a note in your calendar to cancel it. Although even then, sometimes they make it like next door to impossible to cancel. So, be sparing with your paid trials.
They do. Yeah, and be prepared that you might need to, I don't know, it better be a really good tool.
Yeah.
That you really, really want to kick the tires on. But yeah, I do have a few paid things. I don't know, I don't want to go through what I use, but maybe I'll put them in the show notes and I'll put links to everything that you have already talked about.
Good, because I was going to say,
in the show notes.
I want to hear what you use. I want to know if there's something I'm missing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that would probably be a revelation to you, although I do use Evernote.
Yes,
for my writing. So yeah, and have thousands and thousands of notes. And then of course it also becomes something useful that you use just for like tracking. Like I have a kid that's applying to college. So like everything involved with that, I can keep track of that.
Boy, if there was ever an application for Evernote, that's the one.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like totally. And so that was a great addition. And again, most of the things that I use, truthfully, they were usually given to me by somebody else who was already a friend, a fellow freelancer, whoever that was already using it and having success. And that's how I found
Well,
those
and the
tools.
other thing too, like going back to Trello, like mostly when I use that, it's a client. They've already paid for the paid version, so I don't have to.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like don't volunteer to buy stuff that the people who are paying you should buy.
No, totally.
Hopefully
totally
it won't come up,
totally
but a good thing to keep in mind.
Good reminders there. Up next, how the job hopper can help you. Jen, we've known each other for forever. This is the first time we're like really collaborating.
I know. I'm excited.
On this level. Like I said, there are so many things that I admire about you, and I do love to be following your social media because I enjoy your family dynamics so much. And I just want to ask you about your daughter. She just seems she just seems like magic. And I love it. Can you tell us a little bit more about Katie?
Yes. Okay. First of all, you're going to be sorry you asked. I love to talk about Katie, and I could do it all day long. Katie is my daughter, and she is 6, and I had her when I was almost 42. So, I'd had this whole life before, and then I was like, wow, I remember being pregnant and thinking, I sure hope this works out, because it was going to be this big change. And then Katie arrived, and she is the most awesome, delightfully weird person on the face of the earth, and very wise in that way that extremely smart kids can be wise. The other day I was trying to figure out, we had a huge snowstorm and I was doing work stuff and house stuff. And then it occurred to me I hadn't heard anything from Katie for a while. And I'm like, that never means good things. So I went looking for her, and she had made herself a fort in her bedroom, and she was just quietly reading. And I was like, oh my God, we've achieved the next level. I just kind of backed out of the room like Homer Simpsoning my way into a hedge, like, peace and quiet, it's here at last. Here we go. But she's been great, and freelancing has also allowed me to be there for her in ways that, again, like the culture could change to allow people to have a full-time job and a life and a family and take care of themselves. But that's not within any of our individual control. Freelancing kind of lets you do all of that without waiting for society to get a clue. Because it might be a while. I have a feeling it might be a minute.
It might be a while.
Yeah.
Going freelance when my son was a baby has allowed me to be there for all of the things that they need me there for.
Yeah.
And with my whole body and soul.
Yeah.
But to bring my whole self and not be worried that, oh my gosh, I have to get right back to my desk for whatever reason. Now, there are times when I miss things because if there's a conference or I have a speaking opportunity, like I was gone one time on my daughter's birthday, but also I had a room full of people sing happy birthday and recorded it for her. So
I bet
like
she
that
loved
was,
that.
yeah, she did. She may have found it a little embarrassing.
But, I think that's really important too, because we want to be there for our kids, and like they're the center of our hearts. But also one of the things that we can give them is a demonstration of how their mother and other women deserve to work on things that they love, that it's okay to have passions outside of your home. And another thing that I really love about freelancing is it makes me possible to do that part-time, whereas if I had to find a part-time job, it might be harder to find something that I loved as much as the work that I do.
There was some great advice in Michelle Obama's book. I think it was Becoming. I think that's the title. I have to look it up and link it in the show notes. And she said she worked part-time for a while when her kids were little. And she said, you might as well just work full-time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, because you just get paid part-time and then work full-time.
It just takes over your life anyway. All right. We have gone through a lot of resources. I will link everything in the show notes. But Jen, let's go through where folks can find you and find the Job Hopper and find Allison, and so that they can take advantage of the great information that you're putting out.
Great. So the best place to find us is at our Substack. That is thejobhopper.substack.com. And that is not a government site, so you can just type that in and you will find it. You can subscribe for free. Our job search content, all of our main advice content is free, and it will be free forever. We have some bonus content, like an advice column, that is for paid subscribers. But if you submit a question to that, and we answer it, obviously we send you that answer for free. We're not going to shake you down for $5 until you.
Oh, that's so funny.
But we would love to see you, and our chat is open and free, and you can email us through the site. And we really did create this site primarily to give back, because we both received so much help over the years. And as the internet has changed, not necessarily in positive ways, it's become a lot harder to access advice for free that will really help. So we're hoping to do a little bit to change that.
I love it. I can't recommend it enough. People need to go right now and subscribe to the Job Hopper, because it's not only great information, but as you've just heard, Jen is one of the most generous and hilarious people that I have ever known. So I just can't recommend it enough. And then thank you so much. When I reached out to you, you were an emphatic yes. And I was just overjoyed.
I was so excited, and I'm so excited to be here. I actually whooped in my office. I was like, yeah, yeah, I'll go on that podcast. What are you doing this afternoon?
Oh my gosh. Well, you should do more podcasts. We'll talk offline.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate all of the ways that you've helped me over the years that you don't even know when I'm reading something that you've written and I'm laughing to myself.
Thank you.
And then in all of the ways that you are helping the freelance community, I really appreciate it.
And thank you for everything that you do. I've been listening to your podcast and I'm really enjoying it. And I have different chronic disease, but so much of what you say is applicable to anyone who is, struggling in that particular way. So thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. Hey, super listener. Thanks to Jen Hubley Luckwaldt for sharing all the tips and tricks about how people with chronic illness can think about pivoting to freelancing. For Jen and for me, it has been the solution to keep doing the work that we love while also being able to take care of ourselves. I wholeheartedly recommend the Job Hopper, which you can find on Substack, and Jen's personal Substack, which is called Old Mom Things. You won't find a more helpful, honest, yet optimistic voice as you navigate a career with chronic illness. You can visit thejobhopper.substack.com for tools, resources, and information. Also, thanks to Connecting to Cure for sponsoring this episode. Connecting to Cure is a nonprofit whose mission is to accelerate research, amplify awareness of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, and connect and support the inflammatory bowel disease community. You can find them at connectingtocure.org, and I am so grateful for their support. As always, links to a written transcript, everyone's social media handles, and more information on the topics we discussed is in the show notes and on my episode 171 page on aboutibd.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, until next time, I want you to know more about IBD. About IBD is a production of Mal and Tal Enterprises. It is edited, written, produced, and directed by me, Amber Tresca. Mix and sound design is by Mac Cooney. Theme music is from Cooney Studio. Well, I would hope you listen to my show if you're going to be on it.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes people don't, and then I'm like, come on.